Hello, everyone. This is Rick, and welcome to Astral Club. This is my history with the Master. Before we get into it, we have some new supporters of our work here on Astral Club on the Patreon site. First up is Corgi Toes, who is Astral Ascended level. Brandon, also Astral Ascended level. Holger Schultz, who is an Astral Scout, and Vert, who is an Astral Master. And I want to thank these new supporters and all the many others for their help in helping to spread the knowledge and wisdom that can be gained through astral projection. If you are interested in joining this extremely advanced and amazing group of people, you'll find a link to the Astral Club Patreon site in the description. Next up, private lessons. If you'd like to learn to astral project or improve your current projections, I'd be glad to help out. And you'll find an email also in the description where you can contact me for some information on a private astral projection lesson. I've had a lot of new questions recently from people who are new to the site, and they've encountered some of the stories about the Master, and they have been asking me, what's the story? What's the deal? What is your history with this particular individual? What's this all about? I decided to kind of put together an episode where I summarize my experiences with this interesting entity so that someone coming aboard new could get a quick thumbnail version of my experiences with the Master, or decide to go back and check out certain episodes. Even those who have been around for a while might be a little hazy about some of the different experiences. So perhaps this episode can benefit everyone to one degree or another. It seems like a lot longer ago, but back in April of 2021, when I was in Astral Guide School, I encountered the Master for the first time. And that was in the Astral Guide School number 3, the Master Cult episode. I was sent, along with the monk and the virgin, to explore this phenomena that was in the middle plane of the astral. There apparently was a being that could have advanced to the mental plane, but because it was very service to self oriented, it wanted worship. So it decided to stay in the mid astral, where it could obtain worshipers, souls who had passed over and who had not yet reincarnated. Now, there's a problem with that, though. When you stay in the astral, the clock is ticking. The body used to survive on the astral is mortal, just like the physical body is. So normally, the amount of time that you can spend there is limited, unless you're willing to do something that, quite frankly, is obscene, which is vampirize, steal energy from others in order to continue and nourish your astral body and allow you to remain on the astral plane in a much, much longer and extended period of time. So this Master played this godlike guru, and he had hundreds and hundreds of adherents. And the worship that they projected towards him willingly gave this Master energy. And he was able to steal or vampirize that energy from them, therefore maintaining his existence for an extended period of time on the astral. We were called in to see if we could talk to some of the adherents without raising too much suspicion, to see if perhaps we could find a way to free these people. When we arrived, and it was once again myself, the monk, and the virgin. The virgin, and this is perhaps a warning we should have, and I should have paid more attention to, but the virgin immediately fell under the master's spell, and he had to be taken out by our teacher in the Astral Guide School class, which left the monk and myself. And the power and the magnetism of this master, which is what his adherents called him, was extremely attractive. Even I felt this pull, but I have this inherent rebellious streak where I don't like to raise someone above me such that they become a master and I must listen to them to gain all knowledge. That's just antisocial, perhaps, part of myself, the loner part that made it possible for me to say, no, I'm not going to fall under this particular demagogue's spell. While I was there, I was able to form a crack in one of the worshippers to get him to perhaps doubt his belief in this master. And the monk had similar success. So we then returned to Astral Guide School with having achieved that small break in that worshiping mass of people who were feeding this bloated tick called the master. My next encounter with the master occurred sometime later. It was in the Astral Guide School number 5 episode, A High Price Paid. Apparently, the individuals that we had talked to had gone to the Akashic Records and were able to do some research without being noticed missing, because there were so many others around worshiping the master. And they found out that what we had said to them was true, that this being was not a god. It was this being who was taking advantage of them, feeding off them to maintain himself, maintain his overblown ego, if nothing else. They started talking with some other adherents, and before you knew it, there was a substantial part of these worshipers who wanted to leave, who wanted to rebel, but they had to be careful because the master was very powerful. And whereas one or two could go missing and wouldn't be missed, if a large percentage wanted to leave, then that would be noticed and he could combat that. So they requested our aid. So I, along with other members of the Astral Guide School, not the Virgin, by the way, as well as some of our angelic helpers, went to support this rebellion. Now, our job was just to hold off the master long enough with a shield, an energy shield, so that those who wanted to leave could. So that's what we did. Now, I was warned ahead of time, and I should have paid more attention to this too, but I am what I am. I was warned by my angel guide to not interfere and certainly not to challenge the master one-on-one, because I was dramatically outclassed by this individual, especially when he was bloated with all this stolen energy. Well, we went there, we set up this energy dampening field, and about half of the worshipers fled, while the other half fell into disarray. They didn't know what was going on. The master at first was very confused. All this energy suddenly that he was feeding off of halved itself. It threw him into some confusion. And just about everybody had gone except for a small rear guard group, including the individual who I had helped free. They were trying to leave after everyone else had. And the master suddenly regained control and was starting to stop this last rear guard, starting to re-exert his control. And I directly challenged the master at that point, and I told him to let these people leave. Well, he then directed his ire completely on me, and he did something in his fury that was a violation of universal law, and that was he directed energy at me that damaged my soul matrix. Now, that normally is impossible. Beings that have the power to damage a soul matrix also are the type of beings who would never do something like that because they're aware. Even the service to self and service to others are aware that that is a violation of universal law and that there is a price to pay. But in his fury, he temporarily forgot that. So I was hit by this attack, and it caused a dramatic shift in my personality for a period of time. I found myself having flashes of anger out of nowhere, being short with people when that was completely uncharacteristic of me. I tend to be an even-tempered individual. I did some things that I wish I hadn't done. After suffering for a period of time, my angel guide was able to put together a way to repair the damage in my soul matrix. And that was discussed in The Dark Night of the Soul, both parts 1 and part 2. Essentially, I had to have my soul matrix stripped away from me, piece by piece. And then, after some period of time dwelling in darkness and in ultimate ignorance and non-beingness, I was able to reassemble, reboot my soul matrix to reform it back to its previous intact state. At the end of that part 2 episode, the master was brought before me. He had been punished. I don't know how, and it wasn't by me. But he was in a very humbled state. You can tell whatever had happened to him was not pleasant. And I was asked to pronounce a final judgment upon him because he had committed such a heinous act by damaging my soul matrix. I thought about it, and I decided to give him an opportunity to reform. And I sent him back to Earth to go through a reincarnation cycle. My hope, my intention, was not to punish. I'm not a big believer in punishment. What I wanted to have happened was I wanted the master to experience lifetimes on Earth so that he could learn suffering, and through that suffering, empathy with the suffering of others, and thereby grow his own soul so that he could reform. So he was sent then down to Earth to begin a reincarnation cycle. Sometime later, in the return of the master, he had lived many lives, including one as Gulam, who was a religious leader who in the late 1800s, early 1900s, led a group which was considered heretical by both Christians and Muslims, which isn't easy to make both groups mad at you at the same time, but he managed to do that. And he had that lifetime where he was this religious leader. He also had another lifetime where he was sort of a civil rights leader, leading the AI, advanced intelligence creatures, fighting for their rights, civil rights, to become equal with, with physical humans. He had many other lifetimes as well. Incidentally, they were all male, though, no female lifetimes. I was then confronted by him in Ghulam's Choice, where I was told that he wanted to be a member of my Astral Guide School, and that I was picked to interview him to decide whether he could join our school because of our, let's say, unique history together. After reviewing all of his lives and then discussing the lessons learned, I sensed that he still lacked that empathy, and I thought perhaps a lifetime in at least one female lifetime where he was not rich. Okay, I would just want him to be a common working class female. Perhaps that would help him to earn and to gain the quality of empathy, which I thought he still lacked. So therefore I said, no, I didn't believe that he should join our Astral Guide School. He seemed to be very upset by my decision, and he vanished. The next thing I knew was in the Galactic Trap episode. It seems that Ghulam had managed to infiltrate the council. This is the council that is running at least our sector of the galaxy. Now, I had my ups and downs with them, but on the whole, I felt that they, respected the integrity of life and respected all intelligent life and the various differences and opinions. But Ghulam had managed to infiltrate and make himself an advisor to this council. He is a very convincing entity, and I think he used his charm and his intelligence. You can't deny his intelligence. He is highly intelligent. And he was able to become an advisor. I believe because of his influence, I was sent on what I was told was a diplomatic mission. And I believe that at least most of the council sincerely believed at that time that that's precisely what it was. And I was given these coordinates, the ident to travel to talk to this race. I was told wanted to join our group and become part of the council. Well, when I traveled there, I found myself trapped between two supermassive black holes. And I was at just the exact point between these two former galactic centers that held me fast. And interestingly enough, I found out a few months after that episode that astronomers have actually located two supermassive black holes that are actually rotating around one another. And it was quite the interesting story, and certainly held a lot of interest to me because I wasn't even aware that such a thing was possible. Anyway, I was caught in the middle of this particular trap. I was there for a while, but I eventually figured out that if I was able to time travel to the past, right back to the beginning, or very close to the Big Bang, I would be able to get back to a point before these galactic supermassive black holes had formed and therefore escape. Now, I was lucky because I had and do have now a lot of experience in time travel, something which I haven't seen a lot of in astral travel books. And a lot of astral projectors just don't talk about time travel, which I don't understand why, but it's something that's always been of interest to me, and I have explored it, you know, in a very deep way. So my expertise in this area is pretty darn good. So I was able to project back to the very, very deep time past, at which point I was able to escape. In Expelled from Astral Guide School, I returned to the council. I wanted an explanation as to what had happened. I was given some what I thought were flimsy explanations, but the next part really shocked me. I was expelled from Astral Guide School, and I found that the council had been co opted, that the counselors that I was most familiar with were now gone, and that this new council seemed to be under the thumb of the master. Further, they had put an energy shield around my body, preventing me from astral projecting. In other words, taking me out of the situation. Well, I'm nothing if not a problem solver. I figured out a way around that astral shell, and I never really got into how because once again, I didn't want to let the cat out of the bag as to how I did it. Perhaps one day I'll discuss it. At any rate, what I found next in the rise of the resistance is that there was a rebellion, and it was led by my angel guide and others, because this new council was illegitimate. I was asked to find the lead counselor because he was missing. And he was from an alien planet with a very different type of civilization. And if you're interested, you should review that episode because I do talk about his culture a little bit. My guess was I knew where he was. And I went back to that same supermassive, binary supermassive black hole trap, and there I found him. He was caught because he was not someone who was adept at time travel. I was able to take him, though, with me because he was able to follow me through time, even though he couldn't open up his own time stream. So I rescued him from that particular predicament. In the astral existential crisis, I went looking for my old comrades, the monk and the virgin. They were missing. And as often happens in wars, sometimes people disappear. And because there's so much going on, that no one is sent to find them because there's so many other priorities. Well, to me, it was a priority to find them because they were my friends. I went looking for them, and I couldn't find the monk's signature, his ident. It seemed scattered, like a radio station where you try to tune it in, and at first you get it, but then it goes away, then you get it, then it goes away. So I really couldn't home in on it, but I could home in on the Virgin's signature. And when I got there, I found that he was now firmly in the master's camp. He had been co-opted. The master had promised him power and influence and had convinced him that he was right. The master is very, as I said before, very convincing. He's very intelligent. He proposes solutions to obvious problems, problems that are difficult to solve. All you have to do is listen to him and his wisdom, and he will solve all your problems as well as those of the rest of the galaxy. He's also the type of individual that believes that the end justifies the means. This is an individual who will promise you a paradise earth as long as there's a, quote, dieback of about 80% of the world's population. I disagree with that. I do not hold to the philosophy that the ends justify the means. Nor do I believe it is possible to build a paradise on top of an enormous graveyard. There's a lot more involved with his philosophies, but if I had to sum it up quickly, that would be it. I found, obviously, then that the Virgin was under his sway. I was tempted briefly because I hadn't surrounded myself with any kind of protection, because I found myself staring at a friend. So normally I wouldn't raise a shield to protect myself. But naturally I rejected this offer. And I was offered a lot. Oh, I was offered power too, and I could be the first Earth person to have a seat on the council, all that stuff. But no, I wasn't going to fall for any nonsense from an individual like the Master. In Secret Astral Rescue from a Death Star, I would not give up searching for my friend the monk. Eventually, I was able to home in on his scattered ident. It was kind of like going and stopping, going and stopping, going and stopping. But eventually, I was able to locate him, and I found that his soul matrix was scattered over this neutron Death Star. And the magnetic field was so strong in this particular body in space that I couldn't approach it, because when I tried, I felt myself being ripped apart. So I thought about what I should do, and with a little bit of research, I returned later and found that these types of bodies don't exist for more than 10,000 years or so before they lose their strong magnetic field. I progressed to over 10,000 years into the future, at which time the magnetic field that would have ripped me apart was now gone, and I was able to collect the bits that had been my friend the monk. I summoned help from those who are on the healing plane to help me, and then the monk was taken to a healing plane for much needed healing. In Is the Master Leading Us to World War III? I discussed the Master's influence. Now, he cannot change a personality. What he can do, though, especially while various world leaders sleep, is whisper in their ear and accentuate their insecurities and their fears and their inadequacies, causing them to launch wars that could lead and would lead to disorder here on Earth. And the Master thrives on disorder and chaos because it's easier for him then to assert his influence. And I think some of the things going on today are because of his influence on certain world leaders. In Freeing the Monster Left Behind, I returned to the sub-astral hell to honor a pledge that I had made. In the Resistance Rescue from Astral Hell, I had returned to the sub-astral hell to rescue another counselor. I found him guarded by Toadman, who was someone that I originally encountered in a old closed prison in Philadelphia. He had committed awful atrocities against children, but was being held there for murder and had expired while held in this now closed Philadelphia prison. At any rate, I didn't have the energy to get myself and this counselor out of the subastral hell because it requires substantial energy and have some sort of a fight with Toadman. I didn't have enough. So I was able to convince Toadman that perhaps he was being taken advantage of and abandoned by the master, and that if he allowed me to free this counselor, I would return to free him from this subastral hell because, incidentally, he didn't have the necessary energy to do it himself. So, in freeing the monster left behind, I returned to the subastral hell to honor my promise. I believe my word is my bond, and I had made a promise to free him, and so I returned to do so. He evidently, somewhere in that mass of depravity, has, or at least found some seed of honor that he revealed to me that there was a trap waiting for me if I freed him and went back the way I came. So he led me another way. I trusted him enough to believe what he said, and it turned out he was telling the truth. And he got us to a point where I could then remove us from this awful, awful subastral hell. And once we left, he was free to go on his way. That is a summary of my experience with the master to date. If you want a quick video where you can kind of come up to speed, this would be that. If you liked it, please hit the like button, share it with those of like minds. Subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that bell. That way you'll get all of the notifications when new videos are posted on Wednesday at 2 p.m. and Saturday at 8:15 a.m. Eastern Time, U.S. Keep those questions and comments coming. That's how we create the question and answer episodes. So it's also kind of cool, too, to have your question on the Astral Club episode. And as always, this is Rick, and I will see you on the astral plane.